The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is honored to be a supporter of Indian Country Today. Working with award-winning professors, Cronkite students learn news reporting, social media, shooting and editing videos, and producing content for communications industries. Cronkite's 15 professional programs give students the opportunity to cover critical issues throughout the U.S. and beyond. Learn more at cronkite.asu.edu.
This is Indian Country Today.
Esquili, yes, and thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Tholohungva. Here are the headlines from Indian Country Today. The Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe is taking down the 9 highly contested coronavirus checkpoints on its tribal lands in South Dakota. Remy Baldeagle, the tribe's spokesperson, says the tribal council is removing the checkpoints because infection rates among its citizens have declined, and now COVID-19 vaccines are available. Baldeagle also says the 175 checkpoint workers will be offered jobs helping with vaccination sites, contact tracing, and quarantine support. And the tribe hopes to work with the staff from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to maintain control over its own police department. The first known case of the UK variant of COVID-19 is found on tribal lands. The patient is an elderly person who lives in the western part of the Navajo Nation. The person was hospitalized and is recovering. President Jonathan Nez made the announcement during a town hall meeting. He also said the person had been fully vaccinated a month before testing positive. He cautioned people to not panic and acknowledged the UK variant is more contagious and in some cases more severe. The variant was found in a random sampling of COVID-19 tests. Health officials tested for 3 new variants of the virus, and they say it is possible there are more cases of the new variant on the reservation. Officials encouraged everyone to continue using face coverings, washing their hands, and limiting travel as ways to stay healthy. The tribe also plans to start giving out free rapid home test kits in an effort to monitor the potential spread of the coronavirus. This news comes just as the Navajo Nation announced it's lifting the ban on outside visitors. The Indian Health Service in Santa Fe, New Mexico announced Monday it's shifting its vaccine distribution system to target hospitals and clinics with high demand for the vaccines. The Indian Health Service is part of a national effort to immunize indigenous communities. Tribes had a choice of getting vaccine supplies from states or IHS. This boosts efforts by those clinics and hospitals that receive vaccines from the state. Additionally, most Indian Health Service facilities are beginning to offer vaccines to the general population after successfully immunizing vulnerable tribal members. Another tribal gathering is being impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. The Central Council of the Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska's Executive Council is postponing its annual meeting. It was to be held in late April and is now being moved to September. The president of the group, Richard Peterson, released a statement saying, "I believe an in-person tribal assembly will bring the closure we need to put the pandemic behind us and will give us the time and space to come together and memorialize those we have lost, as we do each year during tribal assembly." This year is the 86th year of the annual assembly. And for the first time in its history, the Bay Mills Indian community is being led by an all-female executive council. The tribe is located in Michigan. Whitney Gravel was elected to serve as chairperson. She received more than 80% of the vote. And before this, she served as the tribe's chief judge. Well, the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation in North Dakota would like to change its oil tax sharing agreement with the state. Chairman Mark Fox raised the possibility to lawmakers of levying its own tax on 132 wells that begin off tribal lands but straddle the boundary. Currently, all tax revenue from those wells goes to the state under the existing agreement, amounting to millions of dollars each year. The latest iteration of Senate Bill 2319 that passed the Senate last month could still lead to the state and the tribe sharing taxes on some wells. The state is saying not so fast. State senators attached provisions that the nation did not agree with, opening up even more questions about the next steps. Internationally recognized stand-up comedian Dave Chappelle is heading to Foxwoods Resort and Casino for a live show. The casino is owned by the Mashantucket Pequots. Both parties are taking into account the coronavirus pandemic and will require everyone attending the concert to take a COVID test before they will be allowed to enter. Chappelle will be performing 4 shows at the end of June. He has continued to perform on his property throughout the pandemic using social distance protocols. And those are the headlines from Indian Country Today. I'm Patty Tholahungva. And when we come back, it's time to celebrate the 50th anniversary of one tribal college.
Patty, the Oglala Lakota College is one of the oldest tribal colleges in the country. How did it start? We'll hear from the president. We'll be right back. Oglala Lakota College turns 50 this year. It's based in Kiowa, South Dakota, and in 1971, the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council created the Lakota Higher Education Center. This institution has made great strides in education, but more important, for the Lakota people on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. In 2019, it was honored by Diverse Issues in Higher Education magazine as one of the top producers of degrees by ethnicity. It's also among the top programs for Native American education. Joining us today is Thomas Shortbull, who has been president since December 1994 and from 1975 through 1979. From 1982 to 1986, he represented the Rosebud and Pine Ridge reservations in the South Dakota State Senate. Welcome, President Shortbull, and congratulations.
Well, good morning.
So, tell us the story about your 50 years and how this all happened.
Well, I think we have to go back to the founding of the college that took place in 1971. And we owe a lot of who we are today to Gerald Onefeather. This was basically his idea. And Dene College was created 2 years earlier. But the way we developed is unique among all of the tribal colleges, because our founders wanted to establish degrees so that our people on our reservation could get employment in the professional jobs that existed on the reservation. But we went one step further than most tribal colleges, in that we require all of our students to take 15 hours in Lakota studies, language, culture, treaties, history. And the thing that's unique about that is that we had a mock visit for Higher Learning Commission accreditation, and we brought down SDSU to kind of have a practice session. And the people from SDSU had a meeting with our students. And so they asked the students, they said, you know, it's going to take you at least 5 to 5.5 years versus 4 years for most students to get your bachelor's degree. And that's because you're taking these 15 hours in Lakota studies. Do you think that's worth it? And they said, absolutely, it's worth it, because we need to know who we are as Indian people, and that 15 hours does give that to us. And so our students think that that's critically important to their development, that they know who they are as Indian people.
Wow, that also creates, basically, in addition to education, a citizenship culture within the tribal community, does it not?
It sure does, and I think they appreciate it. My wife has a cousin who basically took some of our song and dance class, and today he's considered to be one of the spiritual leaders on the reservation. And so his singing for spiritual songs came probably from OLC. So the impact is just everywhere you turn around on the reservation, the impact that OLC has on our people on this reservation.
Well, one of the things that the tribal colleges in general, and yours in particular, that I think is so extraordinary is the cost effectiveness. You can deliver education at a far lower rate than almost any other higher education institution.
Yes, our our tuition is one of the lowest in the United States, but even more than that, we let everybody come who wants to come to our college. The only situation that they have to achieve in is that they have to meet our proficiencies in reading and math. So we require a 10th grade reading level, and that may seem a little bit low, but most high schools in this country, you will have people graduating from high schools with less than a 11th grade reading level. So we make it a minimum that you have to have a 10th grade reading level and a math level to take our courses. And so one of our major departments of the college is our remedial program, because we want to get our students to get that ability in those two areas. So it is a really challenging situation. And the unfortunate situation is sometimes we get students with 4th to 5th grade reading levels that want to come and take college classes. It's virtually impossible to get them up to the 10th grade reading level. So they're really at a disadvantage, those students who come to us with very low reading levels.
If you look at almost any of the traditional socioeconomic measures, Pine Ridge has always been a challenging place anyway. How do you then build that into an environment of success?
Well, we just encourage our students all the time to think big, that they can overcome the obstacles that have been put in front of them when they come from schools that haven't really given them the skills that are necessary. So it's really a huge challenge to us, but our students overcome it all of the time, and they go on to have the success in the career fields that they go into.
If you look at the reservation economy from 50 years ago when you started, the #1 employer was the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and the Indian Health Service was second. That has changed dramatically. Now you look at institutions like yours that are major economic forces within a tribal community.
Well, that's true. We employ 300 people at our college. 170 of them are with the college, and then we run the Head Start program on the reservation. So what we basically say, because we had a grandma get her master's degree when she was in her 70s. So the college is from the womb to the tomb, to the grave. So we're basically in all of our people on the reservation's lives as a result of our college.
With your around culture, how has that changed reservation community?
I think it really has made a big difference. There's been a major revival in spiritual ceremonies, sun dances, the sweats that people go to pray. So it's had a huge impact on the reservation, the cultural emphasis, and I think it basically helped our people a lot. And I was recently, we were preparing for a presentation, and normally the two reservations that we serve the Cheyenne River Reservation, and we serve the Pine Ridge Reservation. And the second poorest county in the United States is on the Cheyenne River Reservation. But for many years, we were third. But then a more recent report says that Shannon County now Lakota County is either 9th or 13th. So we must be making a difference in the economic well-being of our reservation by having a college. And the statistics show that tribes that have tribal colleges are doing much better as far as economic or the well-being of their citizens.
Right now, higher education is going through a lot of introspection about what it should look like in the next generation. What can they learn from institutions like yours?
Well, I think the most important thing is, when I went to school or to college in 1965, everything was paid for me. I got a Bureau of Indian Affairs scholarship. And so as I said before, we let everybody come, and so what happens is we still charge them tuition and fees and for their book charges, but when they graduate, our donors contribute to a fund that pays off their debt. So the second thing is, what you'll see is, by my discussion, when a student graduates from our college, they have no debt. We do not partake in the student loan program, so a student will not have a student loan debt when they graduate. So when they graduate, all of their tuition, if they have any outstanding bills, will be paid off. And I don't see any college, other than maybe some of the religious colleges, that pay for everybody's expenses.
Well, when you look at how big a problem student debt in the country, that alone is a really, but on curriculum too, you have things to teach.
Yes, well, our major degree offerings is elementary education. Has always been a critical need, and nursing. We have our development director, Marilyn Kruger. Her mother was one of the first teachers on the reservation. But if you had come to our reservation in the 1970s, you might have seen one or two teachers that were Indian and one or two nurses that were Indian. Today, of the 200 to 300 teaching positions on the reservation, now there are over 150 of those being held by Indian people in the elementary education teachers, and of the nurses on the reservation, there are now 70 of them, and 80% of those nurses are Indian now, and 80% of those Indian nurses come from our nursing program. So we've had a huge impact on our reservation with what we provide as far as the educational skills to be in those professions.
We only have less than a minute, but I wanted to ask you what you see for the next 50 years.
Well, the big challenge that we have, and we've gone a long ways towards meeting it, is we have a $62 million endowment now, and 30 million of that is for scholarship endowments. We want to, in the next 50 to 100 years, we need to raise another $100 million so that any student that comes to our institution would be fully packaged for their financial aid. And that would be a huge, huge accomplishment, and especially serving some of the poorest people in the United States with our students.
President Thomas Shortbull, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. John Tahsuda III is a regular contributor in Indian Country Today. In 2002, he worked as staff director for the Senate Indian Affairs Committee. He is also former Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs, and he served in that position from 2017 to 2020. Prior to that, he worked with Navigators Global, which is a company that provides political service to several industries, including tribes. John Tahsuda joins us today to talk about policy and the impact on Indian country. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you again. So I want to ask, today they're dropping a $2 trillion infrastructure bill. What does that mean for Indian country?
Well, hopefully it would mean a shot in the arm for several parts of the infrastructure in Indian country that have long been delayed or have not had a chance to be not even rebuilt, but built. And so that's roads and bridges, two parts that are badly in need of upgrading, expansion, and for safety purposes, in particular the bridges and things, not just bridges specifically, but culverts, those kind of areas. We saw just a couple of years ago a horrific accident in South Dakota where a culvert had washed out, and a good part of the blame for that can lay in not being able to maintain the infrastructure the way it needs to be. And for the Bureau of Indian Affairs and for the tribes that get their funding for these projects through the Bureau of Indian Affairs, it's really a matter of the budget for them. They just don't have the budget to cover all these. And so they're sticking Band-Aids on things that actually need significant repair.
Well, it's probably clear that even with $2 trillion, there's not going to be enough for the projects that are needed in Indian country. Maybe describe what you would say as some of the high priority projects.
So again, bridges, I think, is an important one because, particularly for our emergency services and for school children, those are traversed daily. And so the fact that many of them are unsafe, there's been a number of reports done by the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, some reports that have been done by the federal government and several agencies, including the Highways Program, highlighting the significant deficit for safety, repairs, replacement, et cetera, for bridges and overpasses, culverts, again, like I said. So that would be, to my mind, one of the first places when you can bring the level of roads and the safety of those up to just the level that the surrounding countryside outside of the reservation has. You not only improve the safety for the community, but you have a lot of collateral benefits. And again, looking at schools alone, the tribal schools and the Bureau of Indian Education schools spend literally millions of dollars a year repairing school buses because they have to travel over these terrible, terrible roads. And so that, that in itself would save millions of dollars a year in the tribal education budgets. And so, and again, there's a collateral effect on emergency services, law enforcement. They travel these roads every day and they just literally beat their vehicles to death. So I think that would be a major first step. There's obviously a whole host of infrastructure issues that tribes can tackle. And you're right. If it was all $2 trillion for Indian country, we could probably knock out all of the infrastructure deficit, but we're not going to get all of that. So there's still going to be a lot to do, even when this infrastructure projects, these are done and the huge budget increase is done. At this point, there will still be years of infrastructure development in any country that's going to be needed.
Well, and one of the challenges has been trying able to put shovels in the ground and actually do these projects in a timely manner. And both the Bureau and the tribes have really deep challenges with this, do they not?
They do. I just as an example, harken back to the year 2000, 2001, when the then new Bush administration came in. They came in with a goal to spend a little over $400 million building new schools in Indian country. And it had a lot of fanfare, but a few years later, reality hit. They literally could not find enough contractors to build the schools as fast as they wanted to build them with the money that they had. And so the last of those schools literally are just being built now.
Yeah, and that actually opens up another question, and that is that we have this opportunity to create not just an infrastructure program, but entrepreneurial culture, because there are new opportunities coming out from all of these programs. How do we encourage that?
Well, that's a great point, Mark, and something that, again, maybe can be a collateral benefit. So if there are not enough current existing contractors in and around Indian country, we need to develop our own contractors. And this is a great opportunity for tribes to partner with, the SBA and other business development, agencies. There's a lot of state agencies as well that, that can lend a hand. But to develop and encourage tribal entrepreneurship, to develop their own companies so that they can, step into this void. There's a lot of need for employment in Indian country. And so this would be a great way to tackle a couple of issues. But entrepreneurship, employment, those are prime goals to hit with this.
Do you think the federal government will back that up with programs to train and encourage and do things to move that needle as well as just spend the money? Or should they, I guess is the question.
That's a good question. You know, it's not clear to me. You've been through the bill, the proposed legislation a little bit. You know, it's not clear that there is a lot of funding for sort of new training programs. There are training programs out there, but they often don't reach deep enough into Indian country to make a significant impact. And it's not clear to me that the tribes will be able to use some of these funds to access training programs. If it's interpreted more broadly, and they are, that would be great. And really the tribes are going to have to take the lead on this themselves. There's just not enough federal program, capacity to really make a big dent for Indian country. And honestly, you know, tribes and tribal communities have the best idea what's needed in their community. So if they develop the programs, you know, history has taught us that works out far better.
Thank you, John.
All right, thanks, Mark.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. I'm Mark Trahant, and we'll be back with another edition tomorrow.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
Indian Country Today is produced at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications at Arizona State University.
This is Indian Country Today.